All right. What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 54 of the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast. And Matt, before we get into it, I literally, I'm talking literal, 10 minutes ago, finished the U.S. Open scoring breakdown. Like I said, I had a bunch of my athletes helping with it. Um, Man, it's not far off of the worlds.
Really?
There's a few differences, but there's a lot more similarities than there are differences.
I can't wait to dive into that. I don't want to give away our juice right now,
Well,
but
let's.
I thought it would be if you asked me my gut instinct, what it would be, I would think that there are probably some areas that were dramatically different than in the international stage as opposed
Um,
to the domestic stage.
Well, we'll put it. We'll put it out there. Obviously, we'll Rudis make it look nice and everything. I'll say gut wrenches were still the number one scoring hold, like you pointed out, of any hold. Um, they were not as dominant over laces. I'd say, we said it was like 4.5 to 1 on the World Championships. It's about 2 to 1 in the U.S. Open.
Interesting.
Shots are obviously still the number one score by a long shot. Defense is still the number two scoring thing by a long shot. Control tie usage replaced the push out as the number three score. I thought so. Those flip
All
places,
right, we don't want to
right?
give everything away.
Well, this isn't everything. I mean, we did freaking 2.5 hours of
True,
talking
we did. We
about.
did.
So I'm talking 2 minutes about it.
It was interesting up in New York. I had several coaches that pulled me aside, and they're like,
Yes.
"This was really really fascinating stuff. Like this is really good tangible stuff." Because a lot of times, coaches are always trying to convince their athlete that what they're telling them is the right thing. And so they're like, "This is just reinforcing a lot of the things that we're trying to relay to our athletes." They're skeptical and they're like, well, I like to do this or I like to do that. But, when you give them data doesn't lie, really, right?
Data does not
So,
lie. Okay, can I tell you one more thing?
sure.
Okay, and before we put this out, is I thought this was fascinating. The number one defensive score was a dump. So remember that could be a crotch lift, a chest lock. So off of their shot, right? They shoot on us, and some way or another we dump them to their back. So you have a few different choices. That was the number one scoring defensive score off of shots, and obviously on the World Championships, the down block go behinds was. So down block go behind was actually, this is fascinating, was actually number 4 on the U.S. Defensive scoring breakdown. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. Then it went from number 1
Which
to number 4.
I can kind of see that a little bit in the sense where, especially from the chest lock position, in folk style wrestling, when we're used to funking and rolling through, it's a lot. It's not that guys aren't aware that they can't give up exposure from those positions, but I think we're more inclined to be wrestling through positions, and we give up our hip position a lot of times on the chest lock.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah,
it would be interesting to see, and we're not going to do this. Obviously, say around the round of 16, right, which we scored that. So in some places they didn't have the archived matches on Flow, so obviously we didn't do the matches that weren't archived. But it would be interesting to see, like in the round of 16 versus round of 8, because in the round of 16, man, there were some mismatches, right? There were some guys who just weren't quite as good as other wrestlers. And so, I would be interested to see if there was a lot of scoring in that round in this category, or if it was kind of just the same across the board, which, hey, we'll never know because we're not going to get that in depth because this is not my full-time job.
But it would be interesting at a certain point to actually look at the breakdown round by round and how the techniques shift or are skewed a little bit depending on the level of competition and the mismatches in competition.
Yes.
But you do, I mean, even at the world stage, in the earlier rounds, there are a lot of mismatches.
Well, but Matt, at the Worlds, and so this one also, we only scored from the round of 16 on, so no round of 32. And I would say that at the World Championships, when I kind of, and this is just my general feeling, there were some mismatches in the round of 16, but usually by the time they got to that point, there wasn't that many. There was a couple, but not that many. Most of those worst guys got knocked off earlier on, Whereas at the U.S. Open, there was like say a 65 kg. There was really tough wrestling all the way through round 16. But I can't say the same thing for some of those other brackets.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive into it. Hopefully, I think by next week we should be able to be ready to dive into this, right?
Yeah, I will send the results over to you.
And we'll start breaking it down, creating our stats, start
Yes,
creating our graphs,
start making
and
those.
maybe
Well, it should be pretty easy because essentially we're just going to take the same stuff we did last time and just plug the new numbers in.
yeah, we've got the templates down.
Got
Now
the
we
template.
just gotta apply it.
So
So
yeah, so I will share those. I'll share it today, and then we'll see where we go from there. You know what? I'm going to share it right now before
all
I
right.
go and forget about something. Okay, so we're going to talk about Beat the Streets, obviously, which I was involved in, and
All
that'll
right.
be
Do you
our
mind
big
if I
one.
jump in here?
Okay,
You mind if I
wait.
jump in just for a second?
Okay, let me preview the rest of the week because this is a lot
Okay.
about you, Matt. So we're talking about Beat the Streets. You have Kayla Miracle in studio, I believe, this
Yes,
week,
she's
correct?
she's in she's in right now doing a photo shoot. We just recently we announced Kayla right before the U.S. Open. Kayla for most of people, some people are aware she's a 3-time U.S. Open champ, 4-time WCWA champ. Um, has been on several age group world teams, and hopefully securing her first senior level world team here in a couple weeks. So she's stopping through. She made a pit stop. She's on her way from Iowa. She flew out to Ohio, doing some product shoot with her, and then she's flying
Nice.
down to Dallas for the U23 trials.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
then
this weekend.
she's got a busy couple weeks. So she's got the U23 trials. She'll jump into the senior trials, and then if things go
That's a
according to
busy
plan,
month.
she's right into Final X. So yeah, she's going back to back
Uh,
to back.
wow. Okay, and then to preview what else? There is a chance we can't guarantee this yet, but there's a chance Matt. Well, you got a busy week, Matt. We'll also be interviewing Anatoly Beloglazov later this week, which would be a really cool. I mean, that's one that I want to hear. That's it'd be really fascinating. I'm sure he has a whole bunch of great stories, and just also from a philosophical standpoint of growing up in the Soviet Union and hearing what that system was like.
I mean, that's kind of, how we're breaking down the stats. I'd also like to get an insight about the culture of, I mean, when Anatoly was coming through, it was the Soviet Union. But the Russian system, how they're brought up to the system. I'd like to see how if there's similarities and what the differences are. I think there's a lot of assumptions made about
Yes.
the former Soviet states and Russia and how they're brought through the system. But it'll be interesting to get his perspective on
I
growing
mean,
up in the Russian federated system, and then
man,
because
for
he
what
does
for
have
what
some
we're
context.
I've never seen an in-depth interview with someone about that system. I mean, specifically, obviously, the wrestling system. I've never really seen an in-depth interview with someone about it. If it does exist, I don't remember it. I don't. Do you remember an interview like that anywhere?
No, not that I recall.
I
So it should be
mean,
fun. It's
yeah,
just a conversation that I have thought about for quite a long time, and the opportunity presented itself, and so hopefully we can make that happen coming up.
yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Beat the Streets.
All right, and I'm jumping off script here, and I know you're not prepared for this,
Well, we
but
don't have a
you
script,
know,
Matt, so it's
but
fantastic.
thinking about you, like I wanted to give you the proper respect that you jumping in and competing at Beat the Streets really deserves, because you didn't have to do something like this. I
Sure.
already respect you, but my level of respect for you grew because the passion you have, the true passion for the sport of wrestling, and the lengths you go to grow the sport, to bring it to a broader audience. And for one of the first time, we brought the commercialized aspect of sports into wrestling, and we brought in an audience to wrestling, and that's by and large through your efforts to actually jump in and showcase the sport of wrestling. Even
Yeah.
though you
I
were
mean,
really, I
Matt.
mean, I know you don't want to say this, but you knew what you were getting into. You
No,
were wrestling
listen.
one of
I'm open to
the
saying it, Matt.
greatest. I mean,
Listen. I went and trained with the guy for 4 days. I knew what the score was, but like I said, uh, you know. I'm saying not saying no to a challenge if I know I'm up against it. I mean, I'm gonna say yeah, I'm gonna say yes anyways. Listen, I was hoping I could get in there and score a takedown or two, or maybe hit a chest lock or crotch lift. Maybe if I got really lucky, I get a cradle. But man, like I said, we worked out for six times in I think 3 days. I knew kind of how it went, and so obviously for me it was, and I said as much. I said this part of it. It was about growing the sport. It was about bringing attention, and we did those things. We sold out 5,000 seat Madison Square Garden for a wrestling match. A wrestling match that didn't really mean anything, right? It wasn't like an Olympic trials.
On a Monday night. On a Monday night.
Yeah, and I mean, and the crowd was, Matt, they were into it. I mean, for our main event, yes, but for the New Jersey guys, for Yanni, the crowd was fantastic. I mean, they were really into the event.
I mean, the level of passion and excitement, and maybe because it was in an enclosed space for the first time. You know, typically it's out on the streets, so the noise gets lost, but it was an electric environment. I mean, it was as exciting, as electric of an environment that I'd ever been a part of. And so, yeah, I mean, props to you, Ben. I mean, you're on the cusp. You're in the heart of your climb through the UFC ranks. You've got a lot of reason not to give back or shed light on the sport of wrestling and for what you're doing. I mean, most of you know, I mean, you're fighting in the next 2 months. I mean, you're basically starting your next fight camp, you know, but you took and dedicated a majority of your time in the last several weeks to promote the sport of wrestling, to grow the sport of wrestling. And credit should be given to Jordan as well, because
and beat the streets for thinking of it.
And beat the streets to grow and elevate and shine a light on the sport of wrestling that's not shown on. And, you know, we see a lot of wrestlers in the UFC, and you know, a lot of the champions in the UFC have a background in wrestling, but none of these guys really, outside of DC, really is truly engaged with the sport of wrestling. I mean, they give credit to the sport of wrestling, and they're always referenced as a wrestling, as that's their fighting discipline. But a lot of these guys, and rightfully so, they're fully dedicated to being the best they can in MMA. But you're one of the few guys outside of Daniel, unless you can bring somebody else to light, that really still is engaged and passionate and trying to grow the sport of wrestling. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
This might sound like, oh, well, this is your platform and we're self-serving you here, but I'm not. Like, the level of respect I have for you and what you did, you know, should be appreciated by everyone in the sport of wrestling. So I wanted to personally thank you for that. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And you know what? I didn't want to hold the crowd hostage on Monday night, but I made a comment, and I'm gonna just I want to go further on that comment. And I said, and you know, so one part of it we said bring attention to wrestling. Number two would be bring attention to a great cause. I don't know how much money we raised. I know they usually Beat the Streets usually puts out a statement on the money they raise. But I said, obviously this is a great cause. I believe in it, and Beat the Streets is helping out kids everywhere. But keep supporting Beat the Streets, but keep supporting wrestling everywhere, because wrestling literally changes lives. And that's one of the reasons I participate in youth coaching so strongly. You know, some people say I'm driven by money, but I don't really take from my academies at all. I mean, that's a fact. And if you see my fighting purses, I don't really need to. So I literally see the sport changing lives. I've seen it happen over and over again. And this is, Matt, this is whether it's a kid in the city who maybe doesn't have a lot of opportunity or a lot of good influence in life, or a kid in the suburb. Listen, man, there's a lot of kids who got wealthy parents, who got nice, comfortable lives, but maybe they don't have great influences at home. Maybe they don't have great influence in school. Maybe they don't have someone they can do, or they can be somebody. Maybe they don't have someone, and this is a huge one that parents don't do today. They don't have someone challenging them to be the best they can be. I mean, that's a big one that I see, Matt. Every parent thinks the right thing is to just give kids what they want and let them at the easy way, and when they struggle, help them, as opposed to challenging them to take something on and be better than they're already being. And so I see that as like, let's help Beat the Street. That's great. But let's help everybody. Let's spread what wrestling can do for people to as far as we can spread it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And there were so many powerful statements by some of the athletes that participate in Beat the Streets, and what the experience meant to them and how formative it's been in their development, in their growth in life, not just in the sport,
Yes.
but in life. And so it's always enjoyable for me to hear these testimonials by the transformative power of Beat the Streets and what it's done. But to your larger point, it doesn't matter. Most of the time on the podcast here, we're talking about the top 1% that are competing at the
Yeah.
NCAA Division I level or at the senior level. But I don't care if you've been engaged in the sport for one day, 1 year, whether you exit the sport before junior high or you compete all the way through high school, it fundamentally shapes who and what you are.
Yes.
And to your point, like the way it challenges you to embrace excellence, whatever it is.
Well,
You don't have to
just
spend.
challenge yourself to be better. I mean, so I think number one, challenging yourself to be better on so many levels, because no matter who you are, you can always get better, right? And then number two, it's like, and Matt, honestly, I bet you'd probably have the same feeling. I don't really know where I'd be without wrestling. Like, it's shaped my life for as long as I can remember. And believe it, and I kind of said this in the documentary Flo did on me. But I was I was shy as a kid. And I don't want to say I didn't believe in myself, but I didn't have the voice that I had later or have now. And what started giving me that voice was wrestling, because it's like, oh, I put hard work into something. Oh, I got a result. Oh, that's great. Oh, let me do it again. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. Let me work a little harder and see what happens then, And so, like, wrestling gave me this belief in myself of what I could do and how good I could be. And like I said, I don't know. Maybe I would have found it somewhere else. Maybe I would have, but I can't guarantee that. So wrestling has just shaped me from a very young age. And, I feel the real desire to give back to the sport as much as I can.
And Beat the Streets is a perfect platform for that. And we've got to give credit to Brendan Buckley, the executive director of Beat the
Yep.
Streets, but also some of the people, Jesse Jansen, Yoshi Nakamura, that have really taken the baton and really moved forward in leading Beat the Streets, the effort that they put in, because these guys are doing really well on Wall Street in New York City.
Yes.
They don't really need to do this. Same as you, Ben. You didn't
Yeah.
need to jump on this stage at this time of your life. But one, you wanted to seek a challenge out. And two, you saw it as another opportunity to give back to the sport of wrestling. And I think if you ask any coach, and me being a former coach is one of them, it's like one of the reasons I got into coaching, it was so fundamental in my growth as a person and my family and my brother's lives that I wanted to give back. And
Yeah.
I felt
Absolutely.
that I stayed in coaching for the longest time because I still had a debt to pay. I still had a debt to pay for what it meant to me and how it shaped me and how it formed me. And I think a lot of coaches at their core would tell you that's why they're in it. They want to give back because it has shaped them in so many great ways. And they want to at least have a sliver of that and give it back to somebody else. So,
yeah, I mean, I would say so. I mean, that's how I feel strongly, and a lot of people. And an unfortunate part about, and like Daniel Cormier is giving back, but sometimes these guys, when they make it too big and they have other opportunities, and listen, man, sometimes it's more fun to travel and go on TV and do that type of shit. But in my opinion, it's not nearly as meaningful. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get way more out of helping kids than I do when I travel. And I still obviously still travel and do some things, but I just feel like you can't do that all the time. You can't just let that be your life. It's man, it's one that just, I don't know. I just feel such a strong urge. Like, kind of like you said, I feel such a strong urge to give back because of what it gave to me.
Yeah, because if you embrace that side of it, it's very limiting. And it's very, I don't want to say it's superficial by any means, but what you're doing, what Beat the Streets is doing is that sense of obligation that this sport is bigger than us. And no matter how successful you get, and I know we've talked about it, and I know where I feel your progression is going to be with the UFC, even when you put that belt around your waist, I know you're still going to be one of your driving forces for wearing that belt is to continue to elevate wrestling and give it the proper platform that it deserves.
Yep.
And
all right, well, let's get to the event.
Yeah.
All right, so I thought it was a great event. I will say, Matt, I hope I don't crap on anyone's parade, but the NCAA, because I also wasn't very competitive on Monday night, But the NCAA champions versus the world team members. Number one, we weren't able to put together a lot of those matches just for, whether maybe it was the NCAA champions coming off season, they don't do a lot of freestyle, whatever. And then number two, there's not a huge amount of those that are competitive. There are some, but there's not a huge amount. And so I think, let me say one more thing, and then I'll let you take. The other thing would be that the electric in the building when Yanni was taking on Barang and they were chanting USA. Like, that is just a feeling that I feel like can be replicated if you do. They've obviously done Russia and Iran in the past. I feel like you should do those more often, or every year, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I believe so. And I mean, my takeaway, there were a couple really exciting high level matches, but a lot of these, there's always speculation and discussion about, well, what's this NCAA champ going to do against, the number one guy, and what it showed you for the most part. And we did have some a couple upsets here or there, but for the most part, most of these guys, it takes a couple years to progress to the elite stage. And that's what really it's shown the light on. Like, as good as these college guys are, most of them have another period of development that they have to go through until they're ready to compete with the number 1, 2, or 3 guy in the United States on the senior level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that they can't, but they still, I know we look at those guys at like a Kyle Snyder that has immediate success in college and at the senior level. But that's really,
but the other thing, Matt, is USA's progressing. So the world team is so much better than it was 5 years ago, 10 years. I mean, you got how many world medalists? Well, you got 6 or 7? Seven at some point.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess if you count Gilman, who might not be on the team now, you have 8. Because Green has obviously Gilman's medal, Colone's medal, and then Skip 65, but Yanni's pretty damn good. Green's medal, Burroughs, Stake, Taylor, Cox, Snyder,
all the way up.
So 9 out of 10 have medal at some point, and we have. I don't think we've. I mean,
ever.
Ever. Are we saying ever, Matt? I don't know if ever is the right word, but not in my
lifetime. We need to look back on it, but not that I can remember. And my lifetime's a little longer than yours at this point, right?
Definitely not my lifetime.
Even my lifetime.
No.
Yeah.
So the 9 and 10. I mean, so that's obviously going to make it harder and harder, especially. All these guys are going to stick around at least one more year, but possibly. And that's
a crazy thing to think about. Most of these guys that are currently ranked or were on the world team last year probably have another Olympic cycle in them. I don't know outside of JB who would be the one guy that is probably, this is the end. We probably think this is the end for Jordan, right?
No, he hasn't said that. I mean, he really hasn't. He said he doesn't coach. He hasn't started a club. And so it's not like he's gonna say. I mean, now he's talking about fighting, which I talked to him after party. I'm not so sure he wants to fight. He doesn't have an obvious next thing, and so I think there is a possibility that he keeps wrestling through 2024. I think that's a definite possibility. But to your point, Gwiz for sure, Snyder for sure, Cox for sure, Taylor for sure, I think all those guys are for sure's.
For sure. Even not most of these guys, it's not a stretch to say maybe the next 2 cycles. They're young enough. A lot of these guys are 25 and under. So, the way 2020 falls, it could be 2 cycles. Who knows? But
yes.
And the way that Jordan
looked,
at
least
I know
2024, and who knows what happens by 2024, man. All bets are out on that.
Right, because as we talked after the match, and we haven't got into your match that much, but it looks like my statement was correct that JB hasn't lost a step. Right?
I hope not. Damn it! All right, let's get into the other matches. It gets funny.
Okay.
All right. So who? Okay, we had the girls starting out the night. The first, in my opinion, big match was Kyle got placed on the kind of early. I don't know why they couldn't find anyone for him. I know Bo Nickel was in the house warming up. Throw him up there. I know there's not a 220 weight class in the NCAA, but man, I thought they could have found someone better than I don't remember what the Canadian dude's name is. What was his dang name, Matt? He wasn't very good. Kyle smashed him.
Yeah, I mean it was more in the sense like Kyle is also he's a one of the faces of USA Wrestling, and so when you
Absolutely.
have an opportunity like this, this is a guy that needs to be on that stage. Unfortunately, he didn't have a competitive opponent, but it was still important to for the public to see, one of the faces of USA
Yes.
Wrestling on that stage. Unfortunately, he didn't have a marquee opponent, but it was still great. Anytime you can see one of our greats compete, it's yeah, it's just a special opportunity. So it was good to see him out there. He looked sharp. He was hitting some good stuff. Broke out a few tricks there at the end of the
He
match.
got a throw. I don't think we ever seen Kyle Sanders throw somebody like that.
Well, we did. It just didn't end up that well. The last time we tried to see him throw, was at Penn
When?
State, right? When he tried that
Oh
lateral
my
drop. Right?
god! Yeah, that did not turn out so well.
This one looked like, yeah, he's got some skills, some upper body skills. Yeah.
Okay, so let me. We forgot about a few. I just clicked on the results. So we forgot it was a high school girl, Valentina Bailon over Emily Saleda. Jojo Aragona over Buciello. We forgot Jack Mueller over Nick Piccinini. I didn't see this man, so I was in the back for.
Wow.
I snuck out and watched some of it, but I didn't watch all of it. So what do you say? Wow over Jack Mueller?
And Jack was on a world team a year ago, correct?
Yeah, U23, I believe.
Yeah, U23. He's got some high level freestyle credentials. Piccinini has kind of started dipping his toe in the last couple of years, but it's definitely not his forte. You wouldn't say that freestyle has ever been Piccinini's forte.
No, definitely
but
not.
Mueller, I tell you what, Mueller looked really, really good.
Yes.
Looked like, he could push some of these senior level guys. And although I know.
Well, no, but they could, man. I mean, we saw this at the NCAAs. He looked great against Sebastian Rivera. Spencer Lee handled him, but we still have yet to see Spencer Lee in freestyle. So, but I think you would agree, Matt. I would agree. If we see Spencer Lee in freestyle, he's challenging the best guys in the U.S. right now, 57 kg.
If not the world.
If not,
if he's,
yes. You're right.
If he's challenging our guys, we have a top 5 guy at the weight who's in the challenge tournament now, in the world team trials, who's a former world medalist. So yeah, whoever makes that weight,
yes,
after Final X, the expectation should be they will medal or should be in the hunt.
Yes, I would agree.
So yeah, I was really impressed with Mueller. He just kind of put on a clinic out there.
Yeah,
made it kind of look kind of easy, actually.
And Piccinini had a great NCAA year. He did not have a great NCAA tournament, but he looked great all year. Including the pin of Spencer Lee at Gal Garaiba. So definitely nothing to sneeze at by Jack Mueller. Great result. He is qualified. Jack Mueller is qualified for trials, so he could show up next weekend.
Right. I hope he does.
It's not that far from home.
Does.
Virginia, North Carolina. That's close. You might as well show up. Okay. Mallory Fealty beats Linda Morais. I also did not see this one. You got any feedback from this one?
Yeah, Linda Morais was, I think, a 2016 world bronze medalist.
Okay.
Mallory Fealty was a bronze medalist a year ago, but she made relatively quick work out of her. It was 11-0 in short order. I believe in less than 2 minutes, the match finished up. So, yeah, against a credentialed senior level opponent who was a former bronze medalist herself. But yeah, Mallory Fealty looked pretty good. And ironically enough, that's probably the individual that Kayla's going to have to take out to make the world team. So it's good to
So is Mallory Fealty, is she super young? Is she U23 aged also or no?
I don't believe she's U23. I think she's expired out of that age group.
Okay, expired. That's funny. Expired from that age group. That's good, man. Okay. All right. Next, the last one that we forgot about was, and I watched a bit of this match, not the whole thing. James Green, Anthony Ashnall. James Green with 8-4. I know he got up early, and then Anthony came back and got a few takedowns late. I believe Anthony is going down to 65 kilograms for the trials, is what I think is going to happen. So again, I didn't see the whole thing, so you have to give us.
It kind of looked like if he was thinking about staying at 70, James Green took this more than just an exhibition match, and it looked to me like James Green had a little extra motivation. Obviously, Anthony Ashton won the NCAA title at 149, then stepped in for the Pan Am team, rolled through the Pan Am
Yep.
games, dominating everybody. And I think that lifted everybody's expectations. I think unrealistically so about
Yeah.
the competitiveness of this match. James Green came out and showed why he's a multiple-time world medalist and looked dominant. Looked like he took his foot off the gas. I thought he was going to secure the tech fall. I
Matt,
believe he was up
is
8-0.
that scary to you? Because that's exactly he took his foot off the gas at the U.S. Open also.
Yeah. I mean, I would
scare
be.
you?
I mean, that's. I mean, if I'm Mark Manning, and Brian Snyder, I in the corner when you're up 8-0, my thing is like, hey, let's get off the mat here, James.
It's one more
Go
takedown.
secure go get that last takedown. Let's get off the mat. Let's get ready for the world team trials, and but he did. I mean, he just took his foot off the gas, and Ashton came on. I mean, not that Green was threatened at any point, but when you stake a guy to 8 points, I mean, you would expect just go finish the match, get off the mat, and let's move on.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so then we talked about Snyder, and the guy's name was Nishan Randhawa. Gwiazdowski versus Derek White. I was kind of surprised this was such a blowout. I thought Derek White had a decent U.S. Open. Obviously, he had a close match with Andy Gassar at the NCAA Championships, who beat Gable Stevenson. And Gwiazdowski just made it look like light work. I mean, wasn't even slightly competitive. I figured he'd win, but I thought it would be closer. Maybe Derek White could get a takedown or so.
I mean, I think this goes back to what we referenced, like the gap that needs to be closed from your college career to an established senior level guy, multiple time world medalist. It just showed how good. And we've got such an embarrassment of riches at the senior level right now. So many world champs that we almost minimize or overlook the guys. Oh, this guy's just a world bronze medalist a couple times, right? Right? And it just, I think it just showcased what a special heavyweight Nick Gwiazdowski is. I mean, and Jesse and I were talking about this during the match. It really highlighted how special Kyle Snyder is. That he
beat Gwiazdowski,
denied him his third NCAA title because this guy, I mean, he's phenomenal. He's full sized. He's so agile, so athletic, and that's what we kind of thought of Derek White, right? He's this big guy moving 97.
He's definitely small. How much smaller do you think he is than Gwiz?
I mean, I think Gwiz, if I've heard right, goes anywhere from 255 to low 260s.
That's about right.
And so I would guess it looked like White was probably around 240, 245, if I had to guess.
So White only lost to Don Bradley at the U.S. Open 3-3. I mean, it had a really tight match. He lost to Adam Kuhn on the front side. So definitely, closer than what he had with Nick Gwiazdowski.
So what do you think? I know I said this with James Green, but do you think a lot of these guys, even though it's an exhibition, once you step on inside that circle, obviously you're there to compete and you're not going to mess around and it's not a true exhibition. It's a competition. But for me, some of these young guys like Gwiazdowski was like, hey, get in line. You got a ways to go.
I mean, I think they definitely see. I was hoping Jordan would have treated it as an exhibition. He kind of went hard on me. But I mean, for some of these guys, obviously I'm not entering the World Team Trials in 2 weeks. I'm not entering Final X, but some of these guys, I mean, there is a possibility, if not this year, right? If not this year, we talked about these guys wrestling through 2024. And so if we're not saying, hey, they might not see him this year, but Matt, there's a good chance they're going to see him sometime before 2024. And there's nothing better than getting a big brother on someone, whipping his ass a few times to put that in their head.
Yeah, if I'm Gwiz, I'm trying to make the statements like, hey, you might want to think about whatever outside of wrestling, MMA or, WWE. Those might be better alternatives than trying to knock me off the ladder. Because if you want that, you got a long road coming. I thought that's what Gwizdowski, from his attitude and the way he wrestled, was making that statement. Like, hey, you got a long road to hoe if you want to knock the king off.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's I think that's the way. That's the way they should feel. Okay, so next match after that was Becca Leathers, Diana Weicker. Matt, I will tell you, I saw a few exchanges from this match. I didn't see the whole thing. And that's going to be the same with a couple of these matches. Well, I did see the whole Yanni match, but that's about it. So what do you got, Becca Leathers, Diana Weicker?
I mean, she was tenacious. I mean, Diana Weicker was really competitive, and it was a really competitive match. But every time that Weicker looked like she was about to mount a charge and close the gap, Becca Leathers just made a statement that she kept separating herself and continued to look to score and extend her lead. And yeah, it was one of the more competitive matches of the night. But Becca Leathers, I was familiar with her. I'd watched her, but this was up close and personal the first time. She is a tough competitor. I mean, she's a street fighter, man. She's ready to get in there,
street
scrap.
Fighter.
I mean,
MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it looked like she had the mentality where she could cross over. But yeah, I mean, she impressed the heck out of me, and Weicker was a very, very tough competitor. And give credit up, I think, one, give credit to Becca Leathers, because I think this is short notice. Sarah Hildebrand made a game time decision that I don't think it's serious. It's more preventative, that she needs to make sure she's in a good place physically for Final X. So she made the right choice. Probably it wasn't in her best interest to compete at Beat the Street. So Becca Leathers jumped in at the 11th hour, acquitted herself very, very nicely, and was a great win for her.
All right. Okay. Now, this was a match, Matt, I wanted to watch really badly. And, we kind of outlined how it would go down. There was two drastically different options. I didn't really get to see the match, but I think it went down one of the two ways that we outlined it. So Nick Soriano beats world bronze medalist Joe Colon 3-1. What do you say about that?
Yeah.
Impressive.
Well, impressive, but also not totally surprising. Because
not surprising at all, I don't think.
He has Soriano has world-class positioning. I mean, he is so tough to penetrate his head, his hands, just to get to his leg. For most guys, there's a sense of accomplishment. And I think with Colon, if I would describe this the right way, for Colon to generate his offense, he's got to get in wrestling positions, right? They've got to be
underhooks, 2-on-1s. Yep.
Yeah. And Soriano was having none of it. I mean, he just locked him down. Like, he wasn't engaging in wrestling activity. He was just like, all right, I'm just going to wait for one opportunity. And when that opportunity presented itself, he capitalized on it. And because we thought Colon, where he could separate himself, is if he got into parterre. If he got on top.
That's where he's a beast at.
His gut wrench is one of the best in the world. But to get in that position, you actually have to score a takedown. And he never really sniffed getting close to getting on top and getting that takedown, or really forcing Soriano to engage in wrestling situations that could have created a scramble. And I think Colon would have even been fine. Like, hey, I'll give up an exposure here or there just to get on top. Just to get on top. But he never sniffed that. And, the one head scratching thing, and I went back and watched it last night, when Soriano capitalized on his leg attack, Colon looked to his left and he didn't glance to his left. Like, he looked to his left for like 1 or 2 seconds, and Soriano was like, are you still looking away? And when he kept looking away, he just pulled the trigger, hit a shot, and scored the takedown. So,
Did you think so? I watched the one exchange. Whenever it started getting crazy, I kind of popped out and watched it. Do you think it should have been 2-2 on that one for Soriano? Because that was what they wanted, and I kind of felt like they were right. I kind of thought it should be 2-2.
I kind of felt it was a 2-2 situation, but there's a.
I don't know why. I'm not sure why it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I don't want to jump.
That's not a wrong. But that's not a wrong place to throw a brick, because it's 3-1. If you throw the brick, it's 3-2, but the push out doesn't win it for you, right? Because that makes it
Right.
3-3, but the 2 and the 1 overtake 3-1s. Where so he still has to get the takedown. So I felt like that would have been a really, really good place for him to use it at.
And you probably should have, because I believe there was short time, less than
Yes,
15 seconds
not a
on the
lot of time
clock,
left.
and they right back. And that's a guy, I mean, you haven't touched his legs for
Nope.
5 minutes and 45 seconds. What makes you believe that you're going to get to a leg in the last 15 seconds?
Yeah,
So
I agree.
I probably would have thrown the block, because the likelihood of getting to attack, not just getting to attack,
Finish
but
it.
securing a quick finish on Soriano is another thing altogether as well.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I would have thrown the brick there. I don't know why they didn't.
So moving forward, do you think we see Soriano at the World Team Trials?
Listen, he's beaten both guys in Final X. That's Dayton Fix and Joe Colon. I don't think making 57 is out of the question for him. I don't know why you wouldn't wrestle in the World Team Trials if you're Nick Soriano. I can't really see a negative to it. And, I mean, I think the question.
But at 57, and I think the only thing at 57 would be, would he have his pop at 57?
Yeah, I mean, he cutting that weight. Well, I mean, it's not just the one day; he's got to make it 2 days in a row, correct? I mean, so that might take some of that pop he's got away. And so maybe he stays. I mean, obviously, you beat the damn world bronze medalist at 61. Maybe you stay up at 61 and you keep your pop.
Because I mean, he's so shredded. I mean, even at 61, he looks totally shredded. But he still had his pop there. But would his pop be taken away if he goes down to 57 with the day of weigh-in? Where we thought with Fix he filled out decently.
Listen, I'm mad. I'm kind of shocked. I'm kind of shocked that Fix is making 57 on double day of weigh-in. That dude's disciplined in his weight cut. That's no joke.
He's got to be. He's got to be. So I hope, from a competitive standpoint, that Soriano jumps in there at the World Team Trials, whatever, 57 or 61.
Absolutely. I sure hope he hops in there. That'll be, that would be great to see him in either one. I'll take him in either one of those weight classes. That would be great to see. I mean, I want to get Spencer Lee in there too. That's annoying me that he's not in there. All right, listen, we're running out of time. We need to get cracking on this.
Okay.
Well, next one is just like we're gonna be sad and depressed. David Taylor gets hurt in 31 seconds. He put out a message yesterday saying he's okay.
Let's hope that's the case. Let's hope that's the case.
His body language in the video was not reassuring. I did not love his body language.
When you're going through a live situation and you see an injury and a guy scream out, it's happening so fast, you don't know the severity of it. But when they showed the replay of it, man, it looked like his knee was in a really compromising situation, and you hope for his sake, just for his sake, forget USA Wrestling and the world, for David Taylor's sake, you hope that this exhibition match doesn't inhibit his chances of continuing his domination on the world level.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Matt, I was thinking about this. It's kind of scary. Dog, if David Taylor's hurt, we might get stuck with Pat Downey on the world team.
Well, I mean, I think there's some conversations like, hey, could Bo Nickel make it down?
Oh, would that – wait. That's only – but he would have to – no, because he'd have to do it in the next 2 weeks. Well, I guess Bo Nickel knows because him and David are buddies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he would know. I mean if make it down, and he's got that automatic word. He's not locked in. He's not locked in to 92. He could go down.
Well, would Pat Downey move to Final X if that were the case?
If that's the case, he should move to Final X,
He would move to Final X, and then there would be no one sitting out the World Team Trials. And you know what? I'll tell you this. Bo Nickel's got a much better chance. His chances of beating Jaden Cox are much worse than his chances of beating Pat Downey. I'll just go there with you.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that we don't have to engage. Let's hope we don't have to engage in this conversation further. Knock on wood. The MRI comes back negative. We see David Taylor at Final X, or worst case scenario, he can file a medical extension until I believe the middle of August for a wrestle off.
So it goes that far? Because obviously the World Championships is middle September. I didn't know that you could file that far delayed.
I believe it extends into August.
But man, if it's something serious, listen, if it's a severely torn MCL, or a severely torn ACL, that 3 months you ain't getting better in.
No, and you have to if you're David, you have to be thinking to 2020. As much as you want to win another world title, the ultimate goal for him has always been an Olympic gold medal. So I would think he would forego the 2019 World Championships, and be forward thinking enough with what his goal has always been to be an Olympic champ to shift his focus to 2020. Again, I hope we don't have to have this conversation moving forward. I hope we see him at Final X. But yeah, that was unfortunate.
Okay. We didn't really see any wrestling in that match. Jaden Cox, tech fall Pat Brookie really quickly. Matt, I watched, you guys are, again, I didn't see most of the stuff. So you guys are telling me about this throw that we got pizza afterwards. Tell them about this throw that Jaden Cox hit on Patrick Brookie. And I cannot believe how Jaden let Patrick Brookie fall on his face. That was ridiculous. But Matt, how he snatched a grown man up, lifted him that high in the air against his will, it was so weird.
It was like a clean. It was like a power clean. Like he just totally snatched him off the ground, cleaned him completely over his head, and back arched through.
Totally ridiculous.
I was like, holy heck. That was just complete power.
Wow. Wild. Totally wild. Okay.
He showed, I think Jaden references after the match, and I think he is completely right. He is one of the most underappreciated wrestlers in America, maybe the world. I mean, this guy, his resume could stand up to anybody in the world.
Three Olympic medal, or not Olympic, 3 world/Olympic medals. He's only 23 years old, Matt.
3 NCAA titles.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's done it all. I mean, he is one of the most dominant guys in the entire world, one of the best wrestlers to come through the U.S. in the past decade, and a guy that we don't talk about. And, I think we should give him credit. Obviously, I'm not surprised that he tech-falled Patrick Brookie, but I think it, again, showed what a special athlete he truly is, because Brookie's a guy that's probably on people's short list to win the next 2 NCAA titles. And he just, toyed with them.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, so let's go. Last one, Yanni versus Barang. A freaking awesome match all around. A lot of good scrambles, offense and defense by Yanni. And Barang was number 1 in the world going into this match. Man, go Yanni. Let's go Yanni.
Yeah. I mean, he's incredible.
He's incredible.
He's incredible. I mean, one give credit to Bajrang for showing up. I mean, he wrestled. I mean, he flew over from India, wrestled the next day.
No, he was somewhere else, Matt. We talked about this. Didn't he wrestle in 2 different tournaments in like the last 10 days?
Yeah.
He was at the Asian Games, and where else was he at besides the Asian Games?
There was one other competition. I don't know what it was, but he's competed at 2 high-level events in the last 2 weeks, and then flew all the way around the world to wrestle Yanni. So credit to this guy for wrestling anytime, anywhere, literally. And then credit to Yanni for, what I got to give credit to one of my buddies, Nate Shear, said, talk about the last 8 weeks for this guy. Who has had a better 8 weeks than Yanni Diakomahalis? Winning an NCAA title, winning a U.S. Open title, beating the number 1 ranked guy in the world. I mean, talk about an 8-week stretch. And I think he's still, the scary thing is, Ben, he's scratching the surface.
Wow. Yeah, I totally agree. He's only 20. I mean, he's super young. All right, hey, Matt, I got a quote out of India, the Times of India. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Barang had won 9 gold medals in his last 10 international tournaments. The one he missed was the World Championships, where he won a silver. He was ranked number 1 in the world. And he said, it was a fantastic experience to fight at the Madison Square Garden. The match was very competitive. It gave me a few lessons to learn. I can assure I'll come back stronger. The fact that I competed in 3 different continents in 3 weeks is itself quite challenging. I'm thankful for all the support I've received through this period. I did have the belief that I could do well in these competitions and pleased with my performances. So he won a gold medal at the Asian Wrestling Championships in Bangkok, and then he won the Ali Aliyev in Kaspasik, Russia.
Wow.
Hell of a 3 weeks, Barang.
The guy's a machine. He is a machine.
And I love Barang, I'll tell you that much. But I love
I
Yanni
love him.
Diakomalis more.
Yeah.
uh,
And that was interesting because, Kyle, we got some analysis on Barang being and his push outs, and he would take 10 push outs, but he didn't even sniff one. I mean, it didn't really come close. Well, he did have a push out, don't get me wrong,
no,
but not in the
Yanni's so good at going underneath
yes.
people that he's really hard to push around. I mean, and the other thing is if you use that forward motion, he's got those dips and ducks he uses that make it really, really, really hard to put forward pressure on him.
And a lot of people, they always talk about, I'll call it like Yanni's untouchable leg. You get in on his head outside and you're in big trouble. But he came out, he was the aggressor. He was
Absolutely.
initiating his offense. He was getting to his leg attacks, wasn't finishing on them, but was in deep so many times on him. And
Yeah.
just showed, I mean, it looked like he jumped another level from the U.S. Open, from
Man,
the
he's good.
NCAA season to the U.S. Open to beat the streets, man. It's going to be scary if he jumps another level at Final X and where he catapults himself in heading into the World
Hey,
Championship.
Matt. I know we were talking about it, and this is the final thing. We're already 6 minutes over time, Matt. I know we talked about going to the World Championships. Did you know they changed the name of the city in Kazakhstan? I'm blanking on what it was, but it is now Nur Sultan. Obviously, we have to wait and see when my next fight after July is. But do you want to go? If we can go,
Yeah, let's go.
in Kazakhstan.
I'm down.
All right.
Are you? Well, yeah, you're down for anything.
As long as my fight is not like right afterwards, as long as I got a couple weeks, I'm in. Yeah, I'm totally in.
Okay.
All
Perfect.
right. Well, that's it for us today. So Matt is going to be back this week. He's going to have an interview with Kayla Miracle, possible interview with Anatoly Beloglazov. And then we come back next week. We're going to break down some stats from the U.S. Open, and we're going to preview the World Team Trials. And then I don't want to give all of our secrets away, Matt, but we might have another special piece coming before Final X.
Yeah, we'll have to dial that in, but let's definitely plan on that. That's going to be a fun one. So, well, let's keep brainstorming on that, and we'll give everybody a sneak peek here in a week or two.
All right. That's it for us today. We will talk to you later.
All right, Ben. Take care.